Hello, Roman. Today I thought I'd show you an e-commerce site of a client we've pushed that we've launched. This is the agency's oldest client. We've had this client for a year and a half now. This client was referred to me, and the story is pretty wild, by Andrea Ben Said, the boss of Eskimos. I had spoken with him on the phone. We talked a bit about YouTube, strategy, podcasts, and so on. And afterwards, he said to me, "Oh, by the way, I have a friend who's launching an e-commerce site. For us at Eskimos, it would be a bit too expensive, but you, since you're more of a consultant, independent, and so on, maybe it would be a good fit." And that's exactly what happened. I signed them on a small package, etc. And here we are, a year and a half working on it, and the site has taken off. So I'll show you the site in just a moment. I want to show you the curve, the famous curve, because it's always satisfying. I signed
a pretty nice.
You could see about 2,500 clicks back then, approximately. Now we've surpassed 20,000, so we're really onto something. We're close, 20,000. We're really at the top of our game. We've surpassed 20,000 between the last time and now. We're now over 21,000. Clearly, the curve is dizzying. It's really satisfying to see such a beautiful curve. It's
some really good keywords too. These aren't sales or link keywords, chest exercises and all that. It's
not bad at all. There's a bit of informational content that still takes up some space, but behind that, you'll get some good ones. E-commerce URLs, pulleys.
Weight training. Pulleys, weight training, that's really good.
Pulleys for weight training. Resistance bands for weight training, etc. Adjustable dumbbells, you see. Adjustable dumbbells for a product that's going to be sold. 500, 600 euros, you see. A 500 euro product. So we're still dealing with something from a good site with good products. And so it's an exercise, a weight training equipment site, an e-commerce for weight training equipment. As you might have guessed, it's running on Prestashop as its CMS. So we're looking at something pretty standard, pretty traditional. And what do we do on this site? Because that's the big question. How do you manage to multiply your traffic by 10 like that? I have a shop and I'm thinking, but dude, what did you do? We did the basics of the basics. We really did something extremely simple. The product pages, to start with, we optimized them. One after another, we took them and created content for each. We inserted the keyword occurrences that we found in Search Console. We made sure the content was clean, made people want to buy, and so on. Same thing for the product categories that are appealing, etc. A bit of regular net linking, some backlink purchases all the time, and so on. A bit of internationalization starting in 2025. We have an English-speaking section, a Spanish-speaking section, and so on. He already had a little of that, but he hadn't really worked on it. He wasn't too sure, etc. So we took them back, reworked them, made something effective, and properly internationalized the site. And now he still has a majority in France, but you see we have Spanish sites, a Spanish URL that gets 500 clicks. We have product pages and so on. Spanish pages are coming up, still mostly French, but we're getting more and more Spanish and English-speaking content taking off. I know. For example, here we have the product for leg curls, which is going to rank in Spanish and so on. Here we have Italian with a nice squat, etc. So we have some interesting things coming up in other languages as well. Olympics. And we've used a really cool technique called the split product technique. I'll try to show it to you now. On elastic musculation. I know we did it on poids. I think we did it there as well. But quite simply, no, elastic is a product sheet. So poids, that's going to be the case. Normally, basically, typically a problem we had with weights was that we had very few weights. So we only had weight sets of 160 kilograms and so on, with all the weights, etc. And so we had very few product sheets. So no relevant pages, navigation wasn't great, and so on. We asked ourselves how we could increase the number of product sheets. And what we did was take things that were packs, etc. And we split them up again. We said, here you go. Do you want 7.5 kilograms weights? No need to make variants. We'll make a special product sheet for that, 7.5 kilograms. You want a 4 kilogram weight? We'll make a separate product sheet for you. So instead of having variants that are all canonicalized, we used a technique called the product split technique. As a result, each time more product sheets are created for the long tail, a bit more specific, which allowed us to expand the category, improve navigation, and have something that's better overall. On that side of things.
Yes, okay. Because there are several benefits to understand. The main one was to enrich the navigation, not to have a product navigation with 10 products, but with 40 products.
I'll give you an example of this. You see, this is a calibrated weight set for doing things. These are typically deadlift weights and similar equipment. And actually notice they're not made of rubber, so these are more traditional weights. You see, it's a set with all of that. And before, what you had was variants. And here, you could choose I want a 150 set, or I want a 200 set, or I want a 400 set, etc. And so what we did was, instead of having that with variants and everything, which is funneled into a single product, we made 4 different products. And so now we have 4 sets, which means you can browse them more easily. You can look through them a bit more easily, and so on. And that allows us to have more products, so more clicks, more browsing. But also, quite simply, when someone searches for 700, 400 kilos, or calibrated weight plates of 200 kilograms, etc., they might land on our product page. So you have long tail traffic on one hand, and on top of that, you have better navigation. So a little two-pronged approach that we implemented here, which is not at all something you should do on every e-commerce site, but for certain types of e-commerce sites, it's an interesting strategy to develop, because basically it allows us to expand the catalog. So if you have a small catalog and you have variants, it might be interesting to use a product split technique to target long tail traffic.
Great. That was a really great explanation. Thank you.
Yeah, one last thing we did was with Merchant Center, because you know it yourself. Merchant Center is something that's underrated, but there were issues because we were using a Prestashop product feed with Merchant Center, which we managed to fix. And since then, Merchant Center has been booming. So now we have more and more products showing up in Merchant Center, more clicks coming in from there, and so on. So honestly, it's really high quality, right? We're in the top 3 for some really major keywords. We're present in several markets. Thank you. There's been a massive increase in traffic, and it's not low quality traffic. You see, we've also seen an increase in the value of the traffic. And in this case, the client was very happy. He left us a good review, and so on, and so on.
We're dealing with a real business here, because just to clarify, 20,000 visits per month on a link selling website is not the same as 20,000 visits per month elsewhere, estimated. On an e-commerce site where you have customer retention and an average cart of $1,000, it's not the same thing.
Oh no, it's definitely not the same.
On transactional keywords and all that, no, honestly, it's solid. A few questions that a beginner or intermediate might ask themselves. What is the publishing frequency in terms of links, approximately? Do you have a set pace, or does it depend on the budget? Is there a specific quantity to follow? These are the kinds of questions that come up very often.
Yes. So regarding backlinks, what we did was, in this case, it was actually one of the first clients I worked with. So the negotiation, I didn't have a very defined split, etc. I didn't sell something very specific. I just said there will be backlinks included. So generally, what we do is, for this client, we allocate 100 or 200 euros per month to the net linking part. Then usually it's 100 to 200 euros. That means we'll basically create between 2 and 4 links per month, you see, more or less. So generally 1 link per week, often. That's what I honestly recommend. If you can maintain a pace of at least 1 link per week, that's really a good rhythm that allows you to have something fairly consistent. And it will allow you to build authority at a pace that's healthy for a business.
That's 50 links per year. 50 good links per year, indexed, well-sourced, is better than 200 hastily bought links.
That's more than enough. Now, if you have a business that faces a lot of competition, that requires you to be very aggressive. You can increase it. You can go up to 1 link per day. That's okay. But keep in mind, if you start spending budgets like that, generally it's better to have someone with you, to have an expert, someone who has given you advice. If you're running the business alone, building 1 link per week and telling yourself, wow, that's the pace at which I'm going to grow. Meanwhile, I'm doing other things, improving my products, improving my conversion rate, improving all that, improving my copy. Those things are important too. I think that, especially in e-commerce, like having your hands in a bit of everything is quite important. And there's not much point in building more than 1 link per week.
Great. Yes. And I also think that if we check the competitors, they must have a lot more referring domains. However, roughly speaking, it's a niche where you have sites that have been around for 5 to 10 years that really dominate the SERPs. But still, there are some. Maybe there are URLs where your client was already performing well, and you really amplified that with content optimizations, backlinks, and so on. So having 2,000 referring domains on a site is one thing. But if it's a specific URL that's our bestseller, maybe that's the one we'll prioritize and try to rank first everywhere, even though that's already impossible. And sometimes you're already ranking first on what consistently brings in good revenue. Sometimes just a few good backlinks and on-site opt-ins really make a difference, because that's something that comes up often. When I talk with e-commerce owners, dropshippers, even SEOs in general, who are less experienced, they ask me how they can improve their site's authority and so on. But I say, start by going step by step, case by case. Focus on what actually brings you money. If you're third right now and making sales every day, aim to get to first place first. and then we'll talk about the rest. Because you'll have a bigger budget, you'll be able to develop a bit more, invest a bit more, buy more backlinks, buy more content, and develop more products. And you see, that's something that comes up often. People want to develop everything all at once when really it's still a week by week or month by month process, depending on the strategies.
Exactly. Honestly, for me, typically, in this particular case, what's quite interesting is that at the beginning, there were the adjustable alternatives, which was something that had been performing well from the start. So you see, if you go back a long time, the adjustable alternatives were already performing well. The first thing I thought was, since they're in second or third place, let's try to get them up to first, because that's a difference that will immediately show up on my client's balance sheet. So for me, the goal is to bring him revenue, to make him happy to work with me so that he says, okay, SEO really pays off. So that's the first thing I did. Improve all of that. All the product pages where I thought, oh, this one's a bit tricky, in my opinion. There's no way it'll ever rank. The description was poorly written, a bit of ChatGPT, etc. I told myself, come on, let's improve everything again. So everything has been improved again. It doesn't take very long when you go into robot mode to update a bunch of product pages. That's what happened. And then all of a sudden, you see the site coming back to life, coming alive again. You start to see things taking shape. You see a new product, a new category starting to gain traction. I say, okay, now we're going to really focus on this category. We're going to get it ranking again. And when it ranks again, then we'll have something interesting. We'll have a new category. And actually, one by one, I'm going to bring them back up, product by product, category by category. And then, for example, we created some informational content to see if we could capture a lot of traffic, a lot of exposure on certain keywords, very inventive, like bodybuilding, for people who are in the process of building muscle, etc. And so typically, these are things that work well. One thing I didn't mention, because it doesn't show up in the traffic, but this is a strategy you like, Romain, it's the wholesaler pages, of course. I created wholesaler pages for each piece of bodybuilding equipment. And especially for gyms, you see, the guys need them. They're opening gyms, they need equipment. And there's a real need with the number of gyms opening for truly good wholesalers, chosen for that very reason. Because this equipment is really appreciated by the bodybuilding community. It's crazy because I hired an SEO specialist and he told me, I know this shop, I've bought from them, their gear is really top notch. I was like, wow, like, oh yeah, okay, so this is really the real deal. I passed on the contact. I went to find a mailing agency. I gave him a mailing agency. The guy told me, oh, Unistrade, I love that site. They've got such a great bench.
I've bought their equipment.
You see, it's an awesome product. And so obviously we're not talking about drop shipping here. This is a guy who manufactures his own products, who has his stock in Germany and so on. So what's interesting here is that we'll have the opportunity to sell wholesale to big gyms and make some serious numbers. So these are just a few pages that generate a few clicks, but each click, we know those clicks are worth a lot. And so right now he has the potential for big revenue coming in from all those different angles.
Clearly, it's true that when you have your own product, because doing drop shipping, well, I know people who do that, people who do drop shipping, and on top of that, they're on B2B pages, and they tell me, I don't know if this has been confirmed, but they were receiving some serious quotes, especially someone we know in Chiang Mai, Jules. And he was telling me about the quotes he had received. It was about quotes. Potentially, if it went through, it was 5 figures. And on top of that, he was doing drop shipping. So yeah, he was just an intermediary, a middleman. And also by targeting these B2B queries, there was huge potential. Of course, it's not like a regular customer buying something for 30 bucks. Here, you really have to communicate through messages. I explain why he has every reason to go with you and not someone else. But for your client, it's perfect. Plus the product is there, the support is there, the service is there. Honestly, the B2B pages. I think there's still a bit of competition on wholesaler equipment, bodybuilding, but it's still going to be less competitive than B2C. Regarding requests,
Wait, in B2C, you know who you're targeting.
actually, it's Decathlon, the sports store.
Decathlon, as a reminder, those guys are solid at SEO. I'm banging my teeth against them. Every position, every grain of traffic, what I took, I was proud to take because I knew who I was taking it from. Clearly, that's it. Or else some really big fitness brands, Gorilla, Sport, etc. Some brands that are kind of legendary. It's satisfying to arrive and have put Unisrens a bit on the map. From an SEO point of view, honestly, we've had some very good results. Very happy about that.
Magnificent. Quickly, another question that a lot of people are asking themselves. I have a product page, it's average. How can I go from an average product page to a really good one?
Yeah, so I'll show you. And still in this case, the quality of the product pages we have, they're not amazing, but they do a lot more work than they used to. The main thing is a good title. So there you go. Avoid overly long titles. Have a title that describes your product page and don't hesitate to include details, especially regarding the little things on the product page. So you see here, for example, instead of just having lake curl machine, we have lake machine extension loaded ACI. So you're really giving precise information, a title that will be complementary or similar depending on the situation. In this case, we have a title that is similar because the keyword is good. Having a short text at the top is generally always a good thing. A little text that people can read, usage advice, a bit of a buying guide, who this product is for, etc. Often there's a big block of text at the bottom. And so here you can see a bit of our specialty, technical features. We show some big things. That's what it's for. Why the machine works well. Why use this one from us, etc., etc.
It's about reading.
No. Yes, it's text. There is.
Yeah, just to clarify that, you can create good content with AI if the information is good. And
it's 100%. And here, what's even more interesting is that we collected all the keywords where the Search Console had little beeps. So basically, if, for example, let me give you an example. I don't think that's the case, but leg curl with optimized resistance curve, you see, or resistance curve, leg curl. Well, there you go. We asked Aaliyah to reintegrate that in order to climb back up on those little keywords that were pinging little by little. And that's really something that's very effective and that allowed us to climb back up on that and go after keywords on the sides that we didn't know about, you see, little by little. So there you go, 2 or 3 things that are also interesting, like adding a bit of internal linking. So here you see we did it on weight machines, on the extension, etc. So little internal links that are going to be placed.
yes, and actually I hadn't noticed.
They're hidden, they're really tucked in there. They're just there, basically. And finally, I would say 2 or 3 elements that are also interesting. That you might also like products in the same category, complementary products, etc. These are things that are really good for boosting internal linking. And the last point is conversion. Here, we're not excellent in terms of conversion, but we could be better. We could have things that are a bit more, there you go. Banners that can be removed, a product page that's more focused on that. The menu here that could disappear. In short, there are plenty of things we can do in terms of conversion to improve. Unfortunately, that's not my job. I have plenty of tips and tricks that work.
Of course.
And that allow us to roll out, typically the 3 installment payment with no fees. Here, in terms of conversion, it's not bad in my opinion, especially for products at 600 euros. So there you go. These are things that are interesting, but already, if you do this in SEO, you're good.
Yes,
it's already solid.
Yeah, I think the next step, well, I imagine for you in terms of ROI, if your client wants to go even further, I think it would really be more about the conversion aspect. Because even on mobile, the target audience for this kind of site is bodybuilding enthusiasts. Now, these are guys who know what they're doing, who are already familiar with it. Maybe they've already placed an order, so it's not necessarily the typical Amazon customer like a housewife or someone else. So here, you really have to scroll to be able to place an order. But hey, if you're satisfied with the service, you'll order again. But it's true that it's not necessarily highly optimized in terms of conversion or UX.
You can feel it, that's for sure. We're clearly not on a site that was super optimized in terms of design.
You can see it's an old school site, but it gets the job done.
That's something that makes me happy, and I want to point it out. Just because your site is a Prestashop from 2017 doesn't mean it can't convert. You see, you don't have to be on Shopify for it to rank. You don't have to have a beautiful site for it to rank. And just being on a basic but effective Prestashop site, well, honestly, it still does the job really well, you know? So honestly, it's nice to see and it's cool, you know?
And last question, I'm just throwing this out there, but what would the strategy be? If tomorrow your client says, listen, we've got a big budget, we can set you up nicely, we're doing 20,000 monthly traffic, and we'd like to reach 50,000. Overall, what would it be? What would be your main development approaches to double the traffic?
Potentially, honestly, it pains me to say this right after I just said, yeah, it's a Prestashop, but it can still be lacking. Maybe I would already start if he has some time to spare. I'm not talking about switching to Shopify. You
would take the risk of a major migration. Well, if it's already been done, that's fine, but
every migration I've seen from Presta to Shopify, man, the site just takes off. George, honestly, it works so well for SEO that for Rand, there aren't any major technical complexities. It would allow us to do some interesting things, etc. A visual redesign to improve navigation, especially in the categories. You see, I can make categories for you, and we do have categories. They're good, they're basic, but that's it. In terms of images produced, we're efficient, but we're not perfect. So a redesign of the navigation to try to improve it. Maybe a bit of a visual redesign of the navigation system to try to increase conversions and make browsing easier if possible. Catalog expansion. Because one of the weaknesses of this site versus for others, it's the size of the catalog. Because like these products, it is manufactured. It is not him with his forge. But since he has to design them, he has to order them, he has to have them in stock. Inevitably, that means that in terms of the number of references, we are more limited than average. And so in this case, adding more products and so on would be interesting, I think. So I would go for expanding the catalog, and I would probably do a slight visual redesign to make sure it's a bit more modern and a bit easier to navigate. And that emphasizes this aspect. And having a larger catalog would allow for better comparisons between the different products. And that's something important. I think
there's real UX work to be done, because here I see the sales pitch, payment in up to 84 installments. Honestly, that's a really good option, B2B. But when you're on the product page, you don't see all the benefits of multiple payment options or possible discounts. Because really, what makes Shopify strong is the conversion aspect of the spokes. And it's true that this would be a real advantage. In any case, you would really be working on the experience as well. User, the number of pages visited, the relevance of the products.
More and more, all e-commerce sites are doing this. The other day, we were making a newsletter about it, not long ago. Go ahead, I'll pull up the newsletter for you in no time, because I don't know if you've seen it. It shows that we're doing cool stuff in our newsletters. But something that's pretty stylish in e-commerce, you see, is this thing here. On the product page, they have these mini stories like that. And that's impressive when you think about it. You see, it creates little shorts and everything like that. People are brainwashed by stories, snaps, and so on. You land on this, and out of habit, you click on it. On mobile, it pops up in story mode like that with a little extra video. And that's really something that
are very powerful.
So you see, on this site, what we could do is we could already have things we don't have yet, like photos showing the product in use, which we can generate with AI, by the way. Photos, product in use shots, like the product page, the product being used, etc. Mini stories like that, and so on. These are things that would really help. So clearly, there are things to be done in terms of navigation that would help increase the time spent on the site, improve that. And that's going to allow us to have better overall SEO performance. Because more and more we see that these factors are important in e-commerce. The second thing I would do overall is that we can feel we're struggling to take off in other countries compared to France, because we've done a bit of influencer marketing in France. So I would do some influencer marketing in other countries. Since the products are excellent, we just need to target the right audience so they fall in love with them. I'd use influencer marketing in other countries too, as it worked very well in France.
Okay, wonderful. And just one last question about the informational part, because we saw that you were ranking for informational keywords. Is that related to blog articles or?
Exactly.
Articles.
Blog articles that we wrote. Best exercise to build your chest muscles. There you go. Talking about using 20 kilogram weights. The man with steel pecs. We have exercise suggestions along with the products we recommend you use. This allows us to create internal linking and boost those pages. In short, it creates quite a few interesting things. This allows us to create internal linking, to have interesting articles, to bring in some informational content, to increase the number of people who will click on it, who will go on to browse other articles, other things, etc. And each time, basically, we've done the things that work well. It's the top X exercises to build such and such muscle. That's something that works well. In SEO, we did bodybuilding and a few others, like calculating your basal metabolism, which works well. But top exercises for X and Y is something that really works great too. So we do have some informational content from time to time and so on. And since we didn't just do stuff for guys and pecs, there you go, how to build your glutes, comprehensive and effective. So you see, that's a bit of informational content just to attract some traffic and bring it a little towards that. We didn't just attract people with informational content, we also brought a lot of them over to the commercial side. But I always find it interesting to have this second weapon in your quiver. You see in quotation marks there.
Really is a solid foundation. And now before we finish, how much would you estimate, just in case? If the client comes across the video, how much would you estimate in terms of budget to go from 20,000 to 50,000? Because it's a range of 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 for real quality work done within a set time frame. I don't really know, it's complicated, but what I mean is laying all the foundations, the new foundations, in 3 months, and then over the next 6 to 9 months going after the traffic. But you see, in the meantime, you have the migration, you have the specifications, all those things.
To double up, I think. Yes, exactly. To go over it again. We're saying, let's do a Shopify migration. And on top of that, we should at least double the size of the catalog. We'd need small images, etc.
A designer. And then, there are the mock-ups.
The
site is perfect. The product is excellent and you can see it. The more you master your product, the more you also neglect part of the digital side. And that's normal. And the guy, he's there making his products, managing his distributors or whatever. So he doesn't have time to have a great website. But with the quality of products he has and his authority, honestly, if he had an amazing site on Shopify, he could totally crush it.
There's a good chance that's the case. And honestly, it would mostly be costs, in my opinion. Migration costs, costs for creating new products. So a bit of product pages, a bit of informational content to work on, and so on. I think we're still looking at a price tag of, I'm thinking, but at least 30,000.
I'd invest that too.
Because with 10 euros, you're used to handling the whole transition. 30,000, that's with just a tiny bit of ad budget, etc. And potentially you could double the traffic next year. Yes.
You double your traffic, better conversion, more retention. Basically, you're seeing positive results across all pillars. So honestly, that's why I also estimated a range around 30,000.
Well, look, we've shortened it.
Afterwards, I have a little Indian guy for $100. He can do migrations for you, bro. But I'm not saying the site will work.
No, that's the thing. Actually, the migration will be necessary. Then the migration issue will need to be fixed. After that, the new products will need to be added. There's still work to do. There's work for sure.
It's better to pay 30,000. Yeah.
Do a good job, get a good developer, etc.
He'll hide little casino links in the source code, with 2 weights.
He knows how. Best weight bench for online roulette. No, but that's
what it comes down to.
From those kinds of stories, I don't want that anymore.
It's over. Okay, well, wonderful, great. The case study, honestly, was very thorough. I think people will really get it. So don't hesitate to smash the like button, comment, and ask your questions in the comments. We'll come and answer each of you in the comments. And there you go. If you liked it, this is the kind of case study
that we can do again. If you have questions or details you want, because I talked about it on LinkedIn, for example, people wanted details about the split, the product. How exactly did you do it, you see? And so it's interesting because we're really eager to share all the details. For me, the goal is to share with you what works for us. And if you have similar cases, we can say you can reapply what we've done, which has already worked very well. So that's why we're going to try to share more and more use cases that we've done with the agency that work well. When clients give us permission, we go for it. We share because it's really nice to see.
There you go. It's a great case study that you showed us total transparency. Really, the audience watching us, whether it's an e-commerce site or not, can directly apply your advice. You talked about net linking, content on site, listings, products. These are all key elements. Honestly, top video. Great video.
Thank you very much, Romain. That's very kind.
See you soon.
All right. See you later.
Hi, Leo. Ciao.